Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this episode of Mark's Garage. Today we are talking about the 2024 Africa Twin, and we're going to have some fun today because we are going to answer the question, why did I purchase the DCT version, the dual clutch transmission version, over the manual transmission? So we got a lot to cover. Let's get to it. So for 2024, Honda has continued its refinement of the DCT and the ECU and shift points and all of that. And so what they did is made some tweaks when it comes to low speeds and how the DCT works. Not that it was bad, but they've refined that. When you're in a corner and how the bike shifts or doesn't shift when you're cornering, that's important. And so all the other tweaks probably relate to when you're in drive mode and you want to switch over to the sport modes. There's 3 different sport modes, and Honda's made a few tweaks there so that the bike holds on to the gears a little bit longer. You have a much more spirited and higher RPM shift points. And if you own a Honda Goldwing with a DCT and you kind of remember sport mode there, that really transforms the motorcycle. So anyway, Honda made some really nice tweaks for 2024, and that was very appealing to me. Another reason that I selected the dual clutch transmission for the Africa Twin is I already own a DCT transmission in the Honda Goldwing. So, and I've made a number of trips on the Goldwing. The last trip that I took was around Lake Superior. That was in September of 24. We had a group of 10 of us that did that ride. Great trip. I'll put a link in the description, certainly, for that video that we put together. But what I would tell you is it's such a joy on a trip of 1,500 miles where you can totally focus on the road in front of you, the task at hand. You know, your focus can be on other things, not about clutching, not about shifting. And not to say that I dislike clutching and shifting. I grew up that way. I learned that way, and I really appreciate that. But this technology has come a really long way, and it's just a joy to have a dual clutch transmission. All right, here's another reason why the dual clutch transmission was for me, or is for me, on the Africa Twin. So this has to deal with my own chronology. So I'm 65, okay? I've got, I hope, about another good 10 years in front of me of riding. But even here at 65, here's what I notice. And I played a lot of sports, organized from age 7 all the way up to age 49. I competed in all kinds of things, college baseball, basketball, all kinds of things, volleyball. And so I'm noticing with my joints, my shoulders, my wrists, and those kind of things. And so, like on the Goldwing, when I go out for a ride and I'm not shifting and using more than I need to, I really like that. So that's another reason, and I'm glad I've got that option on the Africa Twin. Honda has a very neat little promotional video about dual clutch transmission. And a lot of folks maybe have never ridden a dual clutch. Maybe they don't fully understand how it works. And I want to share this with you here in just a second. But a point that I want to make deals with Corvette, okay? And Corvette has now switched to the only way you can buy a Corvette, order a Corvette, buy any of the new ones, is with a dual clutch transmission. And I'm thinking, if here is this world-class sports car made by General Motors, and that's what they're doing, I think that speaks volumes.
Honda DCT, full control.
Full comfort.
Off-road, not a problem.
Hi, I'm Colin Miller with American Honda, here with the new 2020 Africa Twin. In the world of power sports, Honda is the only manufacturer to offer a dual clutch transmission. Essentially, DCT is a manual transmission that shifts automatically, and it offers a number of advantages. On road, it removes the tasks of clutch lever and shift lever operation. That might not sound like much to some riders, but those who try Honda's DCT are generally surprised by how much bandwidth is freed up for other tasks, for reading terrain, off-road, or just enjoying the ride. DCT also reduces the chances of stalling, and it makes gear changes more quickly and smoothly than is typically possible with manual shifting. Using DCT is pretty straightforward, but because it's unfamiliar to some riders, we'll go over the basics here. When you first turn the DCT model on, it will always be in neutral. In order to put it into the drive mode, you push the DS button below. It automatically goes into the drive, which is the first menu function. If you push, you then go to S mode, which has 3 levels of adjustability. Each higher level of adjustability is a different shift point. Hold to adjust it. If you want to put it into full manual mode, push the A and M button, and now you have full manual control. The DCT model has an upshift and downshift switch on the left-hand switch assembly. This switch can be used in the full manual mode or at any time in the automatic mode. The downshift is used with your thumb and the upshift with your forefinger. So that's an overview of the DCT on the new Africa Twin. Keep in mind that if old habits die hard, Honda also offers an accessory foot shifter that lets you manually change gears with your left foot, just like a manual transmission bike. Speaking of which, both versions of the Africa Twin are also available with the manual transmission. Remember to always refer to your motorcycle's owner's manual, which is available for free at powersports.honda.com. Thanks for watching and enjoy your ride.
Here's another reason why I purchased the DCT transmission in the Africa Twin. Most of my riding is done on-road and not off-road. So it's going to be in the range of 80% on-road, 20% off-road. And that off-road riding is not going to be super technical. It is going to be logging roads. It's going to be some gravel roads, some light off-road. And so that's one of the key reasons. And I looked up some stats here that I wanted to share with you also about the percentage of bikes sold with DCT versus manual. And Honda has a couple of models, as you might know, in the Africa Twin. They've got the base model, and they've got the Adventure Sports, which comes usually a little higher spec, and it's got the electronic suspension. And for 24, Honda changed that front wheel size actually down to a 19-inch on the Adventure Sports. But here's how it stacks up. For the base model, It's right at 50%. 50% by the dual clutch, 50% by the manual transmission with the hand clutch. When you kick it over to the Adventure Sports model, and that's got the bigger fuel tank, kind of designed more for on-road, the percentages change even more for dual clutch. So a little better than 70% of the folks in that model purchase the DCT. All right, I want to share with you a really neat point here from a perspective of an expert in the field. This particular person, his name is Bret Tkacs. I hope that's correct for how you pronounce the last name. And Bret he's worldwide known. He teaches adventure riding. He teaches street riding. He's done trips all over the world. And I reached out to Bret recently, and because I watched his video on the Honda Africa Twin. He was showing how to ride the Africa Twin with DCT. Did a great job in this. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, Bret, I would like to just share a little bit of your video and let folks know about your opinion of the DCT and the Honda. And he was very gracious and said, absolutely, you're welcome to do that, Mark. And we're going to give you here just a little clip about Bret, his thoughts, and how strong of a positive opinion he has about the DCT transmission in the Honda Africa Twin. Here it is.
Likely the most significant difference between the DCT and a standard clutch has to do with low speed maneuvering. And in those conditions, whether it's a U-turn or on a trail, it's all about dragging the rear brake. I'm going to show you here on the trail exactly what I mean. What I'm going to do is as I come in, I'm going to put a lot of pressure to that rear brake and I'm going to add power. You'll hear the motor. You may even hear some blipping. But when I blip that motor, I have that rear brake on so the bike's not going to lunge forward. Also on the DCT, anytime you do a tight U-turn or tight maneuver, I highly recommend standing up. Doing this, dragging the rear brake sitting, is certainly not as easy or as precise as when you're standing on the bike. So once I get to the end of the turn, I can give a little bit extra power, release the brake, and it'll cause the bike to kind of pop out of position. It'll tighten it up just slightly. And I'm not going to get lost trying to throw the clutch at the same time. So again, from a standing position, I'm on the brake. You see I can add power. You can see the way the bike responds. That's the idea, is I want that power going into that back end without the bike moving. So I pick up the rear brake. A lot of power, rear. And then I can turn the bike all the way around. The DCT is likely the most misunderstood technology in motorcycling today. What I found, I've spent a lot of time with this bike now, and I'm telling you right off the bat, I really like it. It's great technology, and there's a lot of places where I think riders have a huge advantage by having it. When we have a bike with a clutch, and this is one of the arguments I hear against the DCT, is when they're in really technical environments, they want to have that clutch to control the power. The DCT has that same power feed, except instead of being throttle and clutch, that's built into the throttle. There is a light delay, not in a bad way, but the way it feeds power out is I add that throttle. It's a very smooth linear power delivery to the back wheel. If I hammer it, it doesn't take long for it to get back there. A lot of fun, great technology. So the next question you're going to probably wonder is, does the DCT do anything better than a standard clutched motorcycle? And I'm going to say yes. If you like drifting the back end. If you love doing pivot turns and sliding around corners, nothing does a better job than this. Because it feeds the power so linear, all I have to do is concentrate on my body position and the throttle. The bike doesn't stall. I can come into any corner, lock up the back end, slide it in and add power. I'm not worried about that coordination. Makes it much, much easier. It is awesome. And I do mean that, not in a kid, teenager, high school kind of a way. I mean, this bike is truly awesome when you want to do slip and slide. With that said, I'm gonna go play on the trail some more because this is the perfect riding weather. Thanks for watching the DCT series, but I have one more tip for you. I was asked specifically, when should we use manual on the DCT? Turns out I figured that one out fairly early in the shoot. I was out doing the slide turn with the pivot and discovered the bike wanted to upshift when I wasn't ready for it to upshift. I was coming up a hill over a small bank. As the back end came up light, the idea was to lock the back brakes, slide the bike into the corner. But the bike was shifting just before I hit the top, so when I hit the power always came on soft. I switched around to manual, that helped a ton, and I continued using that manual and comparing it to the automatic settings all the way through. And what I found is the places you really want to be in manual is any kind of a technical ride. In the other places, manual came in very useful, had to do with going over obstacles or where I was picking up RPMs just slightly for a period of time, and then the bike was immediately going to slow back down. And I didn't want to go through the process of letting the bike shift up and then try to figure out that I'm going slow. And holding that manual allowed me to either upshift and downshift when I wanted it to, or just to avoid the shift altogether. Hope you guys enjoyed the shoot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and more importantly, tell everybody that if you really like the videos, tell everybody that you see, whether they want to hear it or not, how awesome the videos were, and they all should subscribe. If you don't like what I'm doing, just keep your mouth shut and don't tell anybody.
Thank you for coming along, listening to this edition and this episode of Mark's Garage, learning about my opinions about the dual clutch transmission in the Honda Africa Twin and why I selected that as an option. Really appreciate all the subscribers to my channel. Thank you. If you are new to the channel, really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you can consider subscribing if you like this kind of content. So, as always, and until next time, take care.